Welcome to Rockbridge County, an enchanting and historical part of Virginia which encompasses about 600 square miles of gently rolling hills, flat bottom land, and ridge after ridge of mountains. The county has two independent cities, Lexington, the county seat, and Buena Vista. Two incorporated towns, Glasgow and Goshen, and many outlying communities with their own unique histories, such as Rockbridge Baths, Brownsburg, Rafine, Timber Ridge, Denmark, Natural Bridge, for which the county is named, Alone Mill, and Vesuvius, to name a few. The county was mostly settled through the Benjamin Borden land grant. In 1735, Benjamin Borden acquired a patent from English Governor Gooch in Williamsburg, which was issued by King George II. This patent granted him ownership of 100,000 acres in the Valley of Virginia and stipulated contingencies for its distribution. In October of 1777, the Virginia General Assembly passed an act carving out Rockbridge County from parts of Augusta and Botetourt counties. In the very same act, Lexington was set forth as the county seat. The unique geographic arrangements of the mountains, streams, and pastures most often determine where towns and communities settled. Lexington, a namesake of the village in Massachusetts, is well watered by springs and streams, and was and still is in the direct route of travel going north and southbound. The early settlers who bought acreage from Borden were Irish, Scots-Irish, and European immigrants moving into the valley. A search for land, religious freedom, and a need to escape the famine and poverty prompted a massive migration to this country and then into this valley. Some of the surnames of the county's original settlers were Wallace, Lapsley, Boyer, Alexander, McDowell, Greenlee, Tiefert, McClung, Walker, Wilson, and Cars. Most of these were Scots-Irish, who were descendants from the Church of England, and because of them, Presbyterianism soon dominated the religious life in the county. Many of these earlier settlers are buried in the McDowell Cemetery, just north of Lexington. The early farms of Borden's grant averaged 300 acres and were located along the county's major streams. The homes, barns, and other buildings built on these parcels of land were mostly log. While most of these structures have been lost over time, many from the early and mid-19th century exist today, some restored and some in their original state. Each structure built reflected the style of the settlers' homeland. For example, the German influence on style is quite different from the Scots-Irish influence. Agriculture was and still is an integral part of the county's economy. With the growth in production from these farms came the need to find new markets. Community leaders began looking for means of transportation to get their crops to markets away from the area, and the North River, now called the Maury River, offered an obvious solution. For a better part of 100 years, the Maury River supported an enterprise using flat-bottomed boats or bateaux to haul goods to Richmond and points along the way. The operation began at Cedar Grove, about 10 miles northwest of Lexington, and ended in Glasgow, where the James River came into play. Agricultural products such as wheat and corn were sent to market by this means, but the main product transported by the river was pig iron from the many iron furnaces in the county. Between 1760 and 1870, Rockbridge was the center of an iron industry which significantly fueled the local economy. There were 21 forges, foundries, and furnaces in operation in the county then, and the river bateaux were invaluable for hauling the pig iron to points east. In the mid to late 1800s, the canal system and bateaux used for carrying products to outside markets gave way to the railroad. In 1855, the Virginia Central Railroad began running from Richmond through the community of Goshen and on to Chicago and points west. And later, in 1883, the Valley Railroad began its run into Lexington. Both railroads were heavily used to carry the iron ore and agricultural products to locations where they would be sold or processed. Buena Vista, the county's other city, was incorporated by the Virginia General Assembly in 1892. Its name was derived from the Battle of Buena Vista in the Mexican War. This small city, with a population of about 6,000, is nestled and secured within the Blue Ridge Mountains on the east and the Alleghanies to the west. It lies along the Maury River, as well as the Norfolk Southern Railway, and it is home to Southern Virginia University. If one follows the Maury River and the railroad southeast for a few miles, they would come to the incorporated town of Glasgow. It is here that the Maury River empties into the James River. The town derived its name from some of its earliest settlers, the Glasgows. Other early and influential settlers were the Baldwins, Eccles, Salings, and Lockers. The town was incorporated in 1892 and is governed by a mayor and town council. Today, the population of Glasgow is around 1,000. Many of the residents work at the town's only industry, Mohawk Industries. Traveling in a southerly direction along the railroad is the community of Natural Bridge. It is here that the geological phenomena of the huge rock bridge captures one's imagination so completely that the mind is simultaneously projecting thoughts about how it came to be and is taking in the essence of its magnificence and beauty. Many of the most famous people in the country's history have visited the bridge, and it is referenced in literature, both historical and fiction, in prose and poetry, and engravings and in paintings from all over the world. Those associated with the bridge are George Washington, who surveyed it at one time, Thomas Jefferson, who owned it at one time, and the likes of Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone were known to have visited this natural wonder made of rock. While the bridge has been privately owned since its discovery, it is now part of Virginia's state park system. On the opposite end of the county is the little town of Goshen. It was incorporated in 1884. The Goshen area is where the Big and Little Calf Pasture rivers join to form the confluence of the Maury River. So the Maury River begins in Goshen Pass, runs through many small hamlets and communities before reaching Lexington, where it continues to Buena Vista, and on to Glasgow, where it joins the James River. The Goshen area was also known for its rich iron ore deposits, and the railroad coming through there transported the ore to points west. Very near the town is Goshen Pass, a magical 4-mile gorge on the Maury River, whose name was derived from Matthew Fondane Maury, the famed scientist of the seas. In Rockbridge County, during the years of 1860 and 1861, the dialectical ideas of secession and remaining strong to the Union were festering like an angry wound. Rockbridge was predominantly oriented toward Unionism. However, when Lincoln called for troops from Virginia to suppress the seceded states, public opinion changed overnight. This county furnished to the Confederate service over 2,000 men. Enlisted men fought in battles throughout the state under the two most prestigious generals of the Confederacy, Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. both of whom called Lexington home at one time, and both of whom are buried here. In 1864, the troops found themselves fighting on their home turf when General David Hunter began his advance to Lexington. Hunter and his troops burned VMI and many other buildings. They wreaked havoc for days and left Lexington decimated before retreating. When the war ended in 1865, the economy and infrastructure were in dire straits. The wake of the war brought challenges to both white and newly emancipated black citizens, and thus began the Reconstruction of the South, of Virginia, and of Rockbridge County and Lexington. An African American community emerged with churches, businesses, and schools. VMI was rebuilt, and the town began to recover. During the late 1800s, an extraordinary phenomenon occurred in parts of Rockbridge County. The boom came in like a lion and went bust even more quickly. The basic element of the boom was greed. People expected to become rich by profit in land speculation. Land companies sprang up like wildfire. Their companies would lay out a town into lots and then spread the word that they were for sale and that a huge metropolis would be built. Gullible folks from all over got caught up in the boom by investing their money, expecting outrageous returns. Who could blame them? The economy was thriving, industrialization was in full swing, and transportation was developing rapidly, allowing people to move around more easily. Profits seemed ripe for the picking. In the towns of Lexington, Buena Vista, Glasgow, and Goshen, the land companies built huge hotels to draw speculative land buyers to town. Today, only one of these hotels is left, and that is in Buena Vista, which is part of Southern Virginia University. The boom years produced few profits and left many counting their losses. The Great Panic of 1893 was very influential in causing the boom to go bust. The city of Lexington, population of 7,000, is home to Washington and Lee University and the Virginia Military Institute. A stroll through these adjoining campuses is a stroll through history, as well as a stroll through dynamic and exciting educational institutions. Lexington has a very active historical society with an enthusiastic mission to preserve and promote the histories of the Rockbridge area through public programs, publications, exhibits, and educational outreach. Also, there is a visitor center, chamber of commerce, and a governing body with a mayor and town council. On the edge of town is Jordan's Point, which lies alongside the Maury River and which once was the center for the town's commercial endeavors, with mills, a livery, general stores, and the like. Thank you for visiting our neck of the woods. Some points of interest you might not want to miss are a picnic in Goshen Pass or at Jordan's Point, or a walk on the Chessie Trail, which follows the old railroad bed to Buena Vista, a drive up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, a walk down the gentle slopes to the Natural Bridge, a visit to the Virginia Horse Center, a carriage ride through our town, a walk through the historic campuses of Washington and Lee University and the Virginia Military Institute, or a walk in the footprints of history in search of sidewalk commemorative bricks of the righteous and rascals of Rockbridge. Begin your journey here at the Rockbridge Historical Society, where you can glean a sense of our county's history and observe the past, educating the present.